Hello everyone, and in today's lesson we will be going over two of the major leaders in the civil rights movement, Martin Luther King Jr. and Malcolm X. We will first be looking at each of these leaders individually, including their backgrounds and what they are most well known for. Then finally we will be looking at the similarities and differences between these two men. First is Martin Luther King Jr. He was born on January 15th, 1929, in Atlanta, Georgia. His original name was Michael King Jr., after eventually changing it following his father, who also changed his name from Michael King Sr. to Martin Luther King Sr. to follow the name of the famous reformist Martin Luther. MLK was then a co-Baptist pastor at Ebenezer Baptist Church along with his father and received a doctorate at the age of 25. Some things that Martin Luther King Jr. is well known for are the Montgomery bus boycott, where he was a co-leader of it, the I Have a Dream speech, which he eventually received the Nobel Peace Prize for in 1964, as well as some controversies such as possible communist ties, as well as some adultery cases. Then Martin Luther King Jr. was eventually assassinated in 1968 and is still known as one of the most famous civil rights movement leaders in our country. Malcolm X was born on May 19, 1925 in Omaha, Nebraska. He dropped out of school at the age of 15, and he ended up being sentenced to 10 years in prison in 1946 for larceny. His original name was Malcolm Little, which he eventually changed to Malcolm X during his conversion to the Nation of Islam. Some things that Malcolm X is well known for is being part of the Nation of Islam, which he converted to while he was in prison, which is an African American group in the Muslim society, which believes of being separate from the white culture in the United States and wants to create their own state within the United States of America. He is also well known for being part of the radicalized side of the civil rights movement, and his most famous speech is calling for freedom by any means necessary, even including whether that is peaceful or violent or by any means. And then also, right before he was assassinated in February 21st, 1965, he had a change of heart after his Hajj to Mecca, where he had believed to have an epiphany where he wanted to go by more peaceful means, but was never truly able to live out this call because he was assassinated by members of the Nation of Islam, which he had just recently left. Some similarities between these two men is that both called for this to be the civil rights movement to be on a global scale. They both wanted this was bigger than the United States of America. They thought it should be something that was spread throughout the world. Both were also extremely active in having anti-Vietnam War speeches, since this was a main issue during that time of the 1960s. Both men created strong unity within the African American communities, and as I've spoken earlier, both men are the two well-known civil rights leaders. Some differences between these two men is that they both had extremely different childhoods, which could be reasons why they are how they were when they were during the civil rights movement. Martin Luther King Jr. grew up in a more peaceful area while he still had to deal with racism. Everywhere he was in a more sheltered environment. His parents tried to keep him as much away from these violences as possible, while Malcolm X had to deal with it more openly while he had his house burned down while he was a child from the KKK, and had several issues with the KKK that his father had to deal with while he was growing up. And then, as we have seen, Martin Luther King Jr. is more well known for his more peaceful modes of protest, while Malcolm X was, during his main time during the civil rights movement, was well known for the more violent, active rioting by any means necessary forms of protest. Martin Luther King Jr. believed that there should be unity between all races, that everyone should be equal together, living in the same society, while Malcolm X and working within the Nation of Islam wanted there to be separate societies where the African American community worked on their own and were able to create their own society within the United States. And then finally, a main difference between these two is that Malcolm X served as being in the Islamic society and he followed these terms of his beliefs in order to bring about civil rights, while Martin Luther King Jr. was a Baptist pastor who followed Christianity. Now, some conclusions is, if you could, after watching this video, if you could please look at the additional links. I have 2 links available where you can see some brief speeches about from Martin Luther King Jr. as well as Malcolm X. These are both just very short videos you can watch if you'd like, that I'd like you to watch before you can come in. And then also, if you want to, you can find some other videos as well. And then I have 2 questions here I'd like you to look over. How did these men change the course of the civil rights movement? And the second question is, would MLK and Malcolm X be happy with society today? Now, these are both opinion questions, and I'd like you to just figure out what you think from these 2 issues of seeing everything that's going on today, if we had a significant change or not. And that's my lesson for here, and thank you for listening.